Okay, AB Hernandez is a male who identifies as a female. What would be fair is to have Hernandez competing in the male category. It is not fair to the females competing to have to compete with a male.
Do you welcome more research? Is this a situation where more research might help?
I absolutely think that more research and more careful and thoughtful discussion is necessary here. Pediatric sex change procedures are very harmful and they cause lifelong damage to children. And this is something that the United States of America needs to examine thoughtfully, and people need to be able to discuss openly without being called bigots and transphobes.
Years ago, CIF's rule change made it so she would not take away any spot from a female athlete. Hernandez is competing in the women's competition, but under these rules, she could have to share a podium with another female athlete. Now, her participation has drawn national focus with protesters outside the venue claiming she should not be allowed to compete. Those protesters have been kept a distance from the event, but they say Hernandez has an unfair advantage. Meanwhile, coaches we spoke with are telling their athletes to focus on the day.
So, Julia, what can we expect from today's competition?
Well, Boris, it's going to be an interesting award ceremony if AB places in any of the 3 events that she's qualified to compete in. Not only will those extra slots be added for the cisgender students that don't make it, they will also have extra medals, basically duplicate medals for the student that would have placed had she not been there. The Federation will also give the medal, they say, to a biological female student athlete who would have earned the specific placement on the podium. They will also be awarded a medal for that place. Now,
so today we're looking into another very interesting debate, and actually in this particular case the first place winner podium was shared between 2 females and another transgender female, and this incident drew very widespread criticism among the school as well as the parents, and being honest here, it is an important debate about fairness, and even if we have to leave out any liberal opinion. So let's watch how a conservative world-class lawyer, in my opinion, deals with this kind of situation and shocks CNN completely. Let's go.
Opposes transgender athletes competing in girls' youth sports. Julie, thanks for being with us. What do you think of the rule change in this specific case?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate CNN bringing me on to talk about this issue. And I want to be clear that my position isn't that I oppose any athletes. I want to see Title IX, which was enshrined in law in 1970s in the United States of America, in order to give equal opportunity to women and girls in educational programs. I want to see that law enforced. And many federal district courts in our country have already held that this principle that gender identity can be used in place of sex is in direct conflict with the clear language of Title IX. So what CIF has done with these new revisions to their policies, it might mitigate damages that these female athletes otherwise would have had by being ousted by a male who is competing in a girls' competition. But what it doesn't do is get at the root of the problem. The root of the problem in California is AB 1266, which became Law Education Code Section 221.5F back in 2013. That law requires school districts to allow students to compete in the athletics and use the facilities that align with their gender identity instead of their sex. That is the root of the problem. That needs to be rescinded, and the state of California needs to stop enforcing that law if we are going to abide by Title IX. If California doesn't want to do that, fine, but they need to stop accepting federal funds. That's a condition. You have to comply with federal law to accept federal funds.
What would make this fair for her to compete, for those who are competing against her? What would that kind of structure in competition look like?
Who is her?
AB.
Okay, AB Hernandez is a male who identifies as a female. What would be fair is to have Hernandez competing in the male category. It is not fair to the females competing to have to compete with a male.
Okay, so in Trump's federal funding threat, Is that something, though, that would hurt all student athletes, including athletes who are assigned female at birth?
Would his federal funding threat hurt athletes?
If the money is taken away.
Right. So the law actually says that schools that do not abide Title IX or other federal laws cannot receive federal funds. So that's not Trump's fault. The problem is that the state with AB 1266.
But you understand, Julie,
Code,
there's two views here on Title IX. So just to be clear, not everyone agrees with you on how you're viewing it. So in that regard, if you were to take away the funding on as it pertains to trans athletes, not everyone agrees with you. I think we just have to be clear about that.
Julie Havel did a fantastic job of explaining this so clearly. She brought up a really, really important law called Title IX, and that law was made a very long time ago for one simple reason, namely to make sure girls and women got a fair shot in school programs and especially sports, because before that they were often left out. So the CNN host tried to make it sound quite complicated by saying there are two separate views on the law, but Julie's point was that if you change what the law actually means, it no longer protects girls like it should do. And it's like having a specific weight class in wrestling, imagine that, and then letting someone from a much higher weight class compete anyway, and it defeats the whole purpose. So, and about the money for schools, Julie was right again. It's not a threat from a politician, it's just the rules. If a state takes money from the federal government, it has to follow the federal government's rules. It's as simple as that, and California is the one choosing not to follow the rules, and that's what puts the funding at risk. And Julie wasn't arguing against trans athletes, she was just saying that the rules that protect girls' sports need to be respected, that's all.
If you are taking away the funds for athletes, student athletes in California, isn't that going to hurt all of them?
Taking away federal funds is going to hurt all California kids, which is why the state of California needs to comply with federal law. It's very simple.
So when you dig into the science on trans athletes, what is really clear is that there needs to be a lot more research on a lot more trans athletes to be able to draw better conclusions about the effect of whether gender-affirming care actually reduces or eliminates the advantage conferred on an athlete who is genetically male. Would you welcome more research? Is this a situation where more research might help?
I absolutely think that more research and more careful and thoughtful discussion is necessary here. Pediatric sex change procedures are very harmful, and they cause lifelong damage to children. And this is something that the United States of America needs to examine thoughtfully, and people need to be able to discuss openly without being called bigots and transphobes.
Yeah, totally hear you. So there are obviously clear benefits to playing sports, to competing in sports. So when you're looking at an athlete like AB Hernandez, what would you have her do so that she can benefit from sporting?
I view AB Hernandez as the victim in this situation. I feel for him, and I feel that he has been lied to for his entire life, and it's probably very destabilizing and difficult for him right now to realize that what he's been told is not actually reality. He cannot become a girl. What he can do is compete in the male category.
Okay, let's stick to sports. So you say compete in the male category, or what?
Or if the state and CIF want to create a separate category for people like AB Hernandez, and that's something that they want to do, fine. It is not fair to female athletes who have worked their entire lives for this kind of competition, who also, by the way, cannot speak out for fear of retaliation, which AB Hernandez's mother has personally threatened against them. So it's very unfair for our girls and women in California to have to compete with males, have to share facilities with males, and then not be able to speak up about the unfairness because people are going to label them as bigots.
So in the second part, the host brings up needing more research, and that sounds quite reasonable at first, but nonetheless it feels like a way to postpone and avoid dealing with the problem right now. We don't need a fancy study to know that biological males have physical advantages in any sport there is on this planet, and on average they have stronger bones, bigger lungs, and a lot of more muscle mass. And these are just biological facts you cannot argue about. So it's not fair to tell these girls that they have to lose their chances to win and get scholarships while we wait years for more useless studies. And I thought it was a great idea that Julie showed compassion for the trans athlete. This is a tough situation for everyone, that's just clear, but the host keeps trying to make it all about one person's feelings, and sport rules have to be about fairness for all competitors, not just one person. So that's why we have women's categories in the first place, to create a level playing field. So the solutions Julie suggests make total sense, because the athlete could compete in the men's category or in a new open category, for example, that could be created for that matter, and taking away the one protected space female athletes have and that they have fought for many years just isn't the answer. And the final point about girls being afraid to speak up is also quite potent and important, because they should be able to talk about fairness in their own sports without being called names. And it was very great to see someone stand up for them so logically like she did. I hope you liked the video. See you soon.